Alright guys, your boy Ryan Thomas here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the iPhone 7. This is a phone that's had so much judgment passed onto it and so much criticism because of its maybe one slight detail that kind of overlooks the rest of the phone and really does put a dampener on how good the phone is. I'm just going to go straight into it, start off with the build quality. Now this is probably the best refined phone I've ever kind of felt. The fit and finish is incredible, and I've got it in one of the new colours. It came in two new colours, which is jet black, which is more of a shiny black, a gloss black, and the second is a matte black, although they call it just black on its own. It's kind of confusing, but anyway, this kind of matte black is a really cool feeling and looking phone. I think it's a really pretty device, and it makes the phone feel just incredible, to be honest. Not just the colour, obviously, that's doing that, but the phone just does feel really good. And I did get the 7 instead of the 7 Plus. The 7 Plus might have been a little bit too big, I suppose. When you get to the 7 Plus, they do get pretty big because of their bezels and stuff. This phone was just right to step down from an S7 Edge to. Those antenna lines are definitely more noticeable on the other colours, but this black makes them, like, I haven't noticed them, like, just straight up, have not noticed the antenna lines. And that's one of the cool things about the device. Overall feels amazing, the fit and finish is incredible, and including maybe a slightly bigger than I'd expect camera bump, and the fact that the home button isn't a home button, which I'll get into a little bit later. Okay, so the screen, the thing you're going to be staring at is a 750 by 1134 display. That's just over 720p, and it's IPS, so I'll get into that a little bit later, but it is IPS, it's using IPS technology. It's 4.7 inches diagonally, and it's pressure sensitive using 3D touch. It really does prove just how good low res is. I mean, yes, obviously it's not super low res, it's just above 300 ppi, and the screen looks mint. Like, it looks really good. And I couldn't fault it in seeing pixels, I couldn't fault it in it being too low of a PPI. Obviously I haven't used VR on it, so I suppose that might be a bit different. Not sure if you can even use iPhones for VR. I don't check out VR on phones, guys, that's going a little bit too far. But yeah, the iPhone definitely looks great. The screen, like, it just feels great. The one thing that I wish it had, especially at this price point, is OLED technology. And that is where you don't see any black pixels when the blacks are very deep blacks, and everything else the colours just pop a little bit on OLED displays. The thing about the IPS display though is it really does do a good job of reproducing colours, so that's great. It's a more colour accurate screen. It's not a big display, so you're watching YouTube videos, you're better off going with the Plus or going with a slightly larger phone such as a 6-inch or 6.5-inch display if you really want to heavily watch YouTube and stuff on it. But no, this is a great display, and I'm actually really happy. It's one of the best parts of the phone. For the camera then, we've got a 12 megapixel shooter on the back, and it's an f1.8 aperture, meaning that your low light's a little bit better, and also you get that nice bokeh. You get 4K at 30 fps, 1080p at 120 fps, and 720p at 240 fps. Now, like I've said in previous videos, I really do like their inclusion of lower resolution, high frame rate video. It's awesome. Camera shoots nice photos, they look really awesome. I like the fact that this has optical image stabilization in the smaller phone for the first time, which is great. I love OIS. And the videos look good, and again with the high frame rate, I think that's a really cool inclusion. Everything looks great with the photos of this camera. It is really good. The photos, the videos are fantastic. On the front, you're getting an uprated 7 megapixel front shooter with an f2.2 glass, and that can shoot at 1080p 30 frames per second, and it looks good. Like, this genuinely does look good. The camera is great. Haven't checked out the 7 Plus in terms of its dual camera setup on the back, but I'm not a huge fan of the dual camera setup on any phone. I just don't really find it. That I think it's very gimmicky. But yeah, I do like the camera on this phone. It's as good, if not better, than my S7 Edge. I just prefer the manual settings and the way you can change everything with the S7 Edge. So though you're getting this great camera platform, there aren't a huge amount of settings you can change, unfortunately. That's due to the software though, not the hardware. So for software, it is running iOS 10 and probably will go up to iOS 14 or 15. I don't really know how far we've come since, the iPhone 4S, but that still supports iOS 10 apparently, so that's great. So yeah, iOS 10 works really smoothly. I'm sure this is mainly down to software instead of hardware, but yeah, the software just runs great. You're getting, obviously all your new apps and everything's available via the Apple App Store. Software is one of the many reasons people buy iPhones, is because they're very simple and very refined. So yeah, definitely it feels like the applications and the operating system is actually made for the phone, which is great. For the fingerprint scanner, you're getting a really, really fast fingerprint scanner, one of the fastest on the phone. I really don't need to go over this again because it's part of my 6S Plus review even. The Apple fingerprint scanners, the Touch ID is really, really fast, and it's definitely very accurate. It's more accurate than it used to be on the iPhone 6 and 5S. For the performance then, you're getting an Apple A10 quad-core chip. That's the first time that Apple's features a quad-core CPU in an iPhone, which is awesome. And you're getting a 6-core GPU, not really sure on what specific one that is, but the CPU and GPU work really well together, and gaming is fine. Like, it just runs high frame rates, are great, and because the resolution of the screen isn't so high, you're actually able to get more performance and turn up the settings a little bit. You've got 2GB of RAM on the 7, but you can also get 3GB of RAM on the Plus. If you do have a Plus, you're going to get 3GB of RAM. Not really sure why, but there you go. Now, yeah, super quick, no lag, no crashes, nothing like that. Quad core, the first one, and the fact that it's so efficient, you can just tell this performs like higher than pretty much any phone on the market. The new Huawei phones are coming out, that might kind of take a beating, but still the iPhone is beating pretty much every other phone on the market besides the Huawei phone that's yet to come out. For connectors, I wanted to get onto this before battery life. Yeah, we've got one port on it, which is Lightning. And the main controversy behind this whole kind of iPhone 7 release was the fact it didn't come with a headphone jack. And the lack of headphone jack is annoying, but it's nowhere near as annoying as iTunes is. And the fact you have to use iTunes to get music on your phone, that might seem a bit weird for you. I love Spotify, but obviously the mobile version of the free version of Spotify isn't as good, so I tend to use my own music library. And I just hate the fact that iTunes is there and you have to use iTunes every time you want to put music on your phone. So I ended up just using my S7 Edge throughout the entire review process, literally as an MP3 player, and that alone. The lack of the headphone jack isn't the annoying part. It's the need for the lack of the headphone jack that is annoying. It seems like Apple is trying to blame the lack of a headphone jack on the fact that they wanted to further weather seal their phone or water seal their phone, dust seal their phone, whatever. But my Galaxy S7 Edge is actually one Ingress protection rating higher, IP68 instead of IP67, and that has a full headphone jack and a home button anyway. So I'm not really sure what Apple was doing here, but I mean, it's really not that bad. It's just a little bit annoying at this price point. The adapter that comes with it is perfectly fine, and you can connect any headphones to it like that perfectly. It's just, it's just annoying. So, battery life then, what have we got? We've got a 1960, that's 1960 milliamp hour battery. This is a little bit higher rated than the last 4.7 inch display phone from Apple that had, a decent battery in it. I believe the last one had more of a 17 or 1800 milliamp, and this is almost 2000, which is much better. But Apple's efficiency and iOS just working with it so well, and iOS being so refined, means that this lasts all day no problem. If you're playing Pokemon Go, it still lasts a few hours. I was able to get quite a bit of screen on time. But definitely, if you're going to get a phone and you want good battery life and you're willing to pay this money, the iPhones are really, really good for battery life, even the smaller versions. The iPhone 6S wasn't as good, but the iPhone 7, they really have stepped it up with a bigger battery. I'm guessing that's because of the lack of the home button kind of assembly, as well as the headphone jack. What about extra features? So you've got that 3D touch that I explained before with the pressure sensitivity on the screen. That's pretty cool, being able to kind of like hover over something almost as like a hover over or maybe a right click, and then you can press into it to kind of preview it or whatever. That's pretty cool. I like that. Didn't really use it too much, but it's a cool feature to have. I definitely will miss it when going back to my Android phone. It comes in two new colours, like I said before, the matte black and the jet black, which is like a gloss black. And the fact that it doesn't have a home button as a home button, it's a touch button. It's a touch sensitive button that, almost like the screen, will sense your pressure that you're putting into it and then give you force feedback, or taptic as it's known from Apple. It's like a haptic feedback and a vibration that kind of vibrates the whole bottom of the phone, and it feels like you're pressing the whole screen in instead of the button. It's a pretty satisfying sensation, but I'd rather have a real button than have a headphone jack personally. That's just my preference. No NFC or wireless charging here, unfortunately, but I'm sure you can get cases that kind of almost replicate the wireless charging. Not sure about the NFC though. And for the price, I picked this one up for £650, which is the 128GB model, but not from Apple. If you want to buy this from Apple, 128GB model, you're going to be paying £699 or $599 for the base 32GB model. Now, this is extremely expensive, especially for any kind of phone. Even an Apple phone, this is really expensive. And it's too high for the need of a lack of a headphone jack. That's how I'd put it. It's too high for the needing of to basically hinder the phone in its usability just to sort out other parts of its usability. So overall, guys, I would recommend this phone if you're going to get it on contract. I'm not a huge fan of buying phones on contracts, but it's a great phone if it comes up as one of your options. I'd prefer this to the 7 Plus just because I think iPhones just feel a little bit more refined when they're a bit smaller. And I would definitely recommend you go buy this if you're a rich kid and you're looking for a new phone. Because out of any new phone that I've tested so far, this is one of the good ones. It doesn't come close to the S7 in how I feel about my phone, and that's a personal preference. But as the iPhone, it is definitely the best one they've come out with, despite some of its critical errors.